Yeah.
Their daughter.
Different granddaughter. That's where we started.
Call this meeting to order Monday, November 4th. Roll call, please.
Boone,
Here.
King,
Here.
Delaney,
Here.
Schott,
Here.
Fagan,
Here.
and Anderson.
Here. Agenda was sent out on Friday afternoon. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Under new business, it should say 2020 liquor license renewals.
There's no other changes to the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move to adopt the amended agenda. Second.
Motion by Delaney and seconded to adopt the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted. Minutes for October 21st were also sent out. Are there any changes or additions to the October 21st minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Boone moves to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Boone and seconded to approve the October 21st, 2019 minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No public hearings. Moving on to visitors to be heard. Mr. Mullenix, Beresford Fire Department.
And Mr. Carlson's with me. I believe Jerry sent out a letter or whatever about the FEMA grant that we were unsuccessful. We did make it a long ways. It wasn't like they just said, here's another fire truck. No, they did. We were down into, after the last awards, then they have a cleanup period. We're in the cleanup period. But the thing is, of all the truck awards, the average price was about $260,000. There was one vehicle for $685, but only one in the whole United States. So, it was worth a shot, and then, we got the letter that we were unsuccessful from them, and I've gotten a few of these. But anyway, it just, kind of refresh you guys is, I don't know if any of you guys aren't familiar with the past history of city fire truck and that there, but I added that in there. And so now the reason I'm here basically is, what are we going to do now? And basically, buy new, buy used, or reapply for another FEMA grant. Reapplying for the FEMA grant, we would have to probably get in that 250 to 300,000 range. And if you were awarded that, you'd just about have to come up with that much more money. So at this point in time, plus with FEMA, all the flooding, all the fires and stuff going on this year, nothing guarantees there's going to be much money in that firefighters grant program for next year. There'll be something in there, but so that's probably not a wise move to think you'd even be successful. I think that we gave it a good shot here. The company that helped us write it up in that there I was really surprised, and how thorough they were, and the narratives and so forth. And like I said, it did get to the end, so somebody was paying attention to it. Then the next thing, when I visited Jerry about money all the time, and that the prices from the quote we got for replace that truck, We got it from Rosenbauer to use on the FEMA bid was, 600 and some thousand. And there was they had a demo that we could buy outright, which brought that cost to about $575. Well, we weren't successful, and they had 6 of those trucks as demos in the United States. And right now, I think the last one was sold last week. But that price was still good. So I worked with Roger, and I said, okay, what's that truck worth today? You know, same spec, same weight. The price increase was $40,000 for that same vehicle from last year to this year. So that's how much these things go up, you know. And the big thing is price of steel and the cost of electronics and so forth. But he said, you know, he says, I've been working with you guys. He said, we sold a lot of equipment to you. He said, let me go in and see if they're building demos. They got a couple more demos like what we spec coming out. And he said, I'll give you that same deal. We'll have to run it for about 4 months as a demo, but add 40,000 to that price at $575. He says that's the ballpark that you're going to be at to buy it. So that puts us at about 605,000 or in that, you know, area. And that's a brand new truck, spec the way, you know, that we needed in that there. So that'd be the purchase price. The other option would be to buy a used truck, and here again, a 10-year-old truck is going to be somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000. They're going to be good trucks. These guys that sell them, certify and guarantee them for a year, and so forth. But so you know, if a person wanted a 10-year-old truck, you're probably going to get at least 10 to 15 years of good use out of it, maybe even 20. The one we got right now is 30 years old, and you know, I mean, it fits the need. Other than it's too big. I mean, we can get by with a much smaller reach, which brings us back from single axle to tandem, you know, so more practicability getting around in that there. These here, first page is that new truck that I talked about, and the second two are 2 used trucks that are that would be in that, you know, let's call it 350,000 range. But as you can see, they all pretty much look the same. They're all red, and that there. But you know, I guess this would be a second option for going the new way. First option for me is to do the new route, because now you got a 25 or maybe even a 30-year truck, and so forth. And here again, you know, the obstacle is money and funding. Years ago, when I think when the original truck was bought, we planned on 20 years use. That was 1988. So in 2008, we would address, you know, upgrading it. And at that point in time, that truck replaced was under $400,000 for the same type of truck. And you know, I think there was a decision made or whatever to put money away for the next 5 years. You know, get another 5 years out of that truck, and you would have probably 75 to 80% of a new truck. That didn't happen. And then, you know, we looked at it again, but in that time period, that same vehicle increased about $40,000 a year. So now pretty soon, the $380,000, $400,000 truck is now $700,000. So, and the truck that, you know, the one we bought here, the 102 foot, Yankton had that same truck, identical, except they had a platform on it. They bought it new, it was $1 million. So that's what that value was. Now, they had a platform, that's gonna add 100,000. They just replaced that truck this year, and the bid was $1,10,000. And they bought it identical to what they had in that there. So, the thing is, if we actually needed 102 or 100+ foot truck, we'd be talking $1 million, not $500,000. If that's eases the pain any or not. But, you know, I guess at some point in time, the truck has to be replaced because we won't be able to get parts. We'll have to, you know, have somebody make. We've run into this with other vehicles that they stop making pump parts and that after 20 years. But there are people out there that make the parts. You know, you take them to them and a few months later you get your part and you put it back together, and of course no warranty or anything like that. But you can, you know, maintain them for a long time in that there. We got our ISO rating down, you know, big thanks to the Highway 46 project. We got all that 8-inch main put in that there. And we went from a 7 to a 5, which is great. How much money that saves everybody, the insurance guys here in town couldn't even tell me. They said, well, we're going to have to sell some policies and then, you know, compare afterwards, because the underwriters set the price, you know, on stuff like that there. But anyway, having the aerial, that's a big plus on that ISO rating. The pump capacity, we have to maintain 3,600 gallons a minute for this here rating, and we're just under 4,000 with pump capacity we got today. So, but the thing is that if these two used trucks, they both got 2,000 gallon a minute pumps, but they're coming out of the big city, you know, and so forth. But we don't have to increase pump size on any replacement vehicle and so forth. When we traded or upgraded our last two pumper tankers on the rural, we put in bigger pumps that were going to jack us up over the ISO rating that we needed. And I think we did it under $10,000 a truck, you know, over the cost. Because before we were buying 350s, because that's all we needed for that truck, put on grass fires and stuff. But now they both got 500s, which qualifies 1,000 gallons for it, towards our ISO rating and so forth. So this here truck, the one we have now, the original 88 is a 1250, 102 foot is 1,500 gallons a minute. So here again, we don't have to do anything with the pump size or anything like that. The pump size, where it acts up and it actually costs you extra money, is that it takes a bigger inlet, bigger plumbing, more outlets, and so forth. So if the pump costs you $2,000, it's going to cost you 10 or 15 for the plumbing to get it NFPA approved and so forth. Just for a little refresher on our ISO, we meet all the criteria in that there as far as the department structure, and where we can increase to a 4 one of these days is on the water system. Is we got a lot of 4-inch in the core of the town, and most of that's looped, tied off to other, but some of that 4-inch has got to go and get some more 6 and 8 in. And then we can, or they loosen the rules, but that's never going to happen. So, I mean, there is a chance that we can't do it with fire equipment because we're maxed out as far as our credits and that there, and the size of the department and so forth. Anyway, I guess I just looking for a direction to go, and here again, I've been visiting with Gary on a little bit of financing possibilities. And unless somebody kicks a bucket and gives us $1 million or 650,000, we're probably gonna be looking at some type of a payment system or something. And I think, I had, one of the Rosenbauer people that's in the financing part. There's different, ways of financing it. They use a company called, Sourcewell, and am I pronouncing that right, Jerry?
So,
Yeah, Beresford is a member of that. Evidently, you haven't borrowed money now or have in the past. And that they're, well, what they do, if I got this understood right, is that fire equipment builders will have a set price on a certain type of vehicle. And then outfits like Sourcewell and that there will have that fixed price for however many vehicles they want to buy. So if you got a bunch of cities, it's like a co-op in a way, and so forth. Now, here again, it's some work for Tom, would be if your bidding laws would allow that, since you're going to be, it's about a dollar figure, or if you can jump on somebody else's bid, and then, if that doesn't screw up the bidding laws, that would be a way of getting alternative financing and so forth. I know the last time when we used the figures from Rosenbauer on for the FEMA grant, we used $565,410, and we went through and priced it through leasing or a lease buy program they had, and they were 3, 5, and 7-year programs. And of course, bigger the payment, the less years, and that there. An example here, a down payment of $200,000 was on this one. I can't. In 3 years, your annual payment would be $131. At 7 years, it'd be $60,000. At 15 years, it'd be $32,000. So it's all, and I don't know if you can have bigger payments 1 year, but that's roughly, and I don't know what that interest rate is, comes up to. But here again, that's pretty good down payment, $200,000, and so forth. So, and we were talking today that if we're paying like an average of $30,000 on the truck we added here, the 102, that maybe by replacing it, like where we use vehicle, this and that there, you could actually keep that payment probably in check to that same amount, but you're going to be out there 10 years or maybe more. But the thing with a used vehicle here, again, 10 years old, should have a good 10 years life, if not 15. When they completely go through them, you get a year warranty where they fix anything on it and that there. So it does shorten the life. Instead of 20 years, 25 years on the new vehicle, you're going to probably be pushing 15. I'll guarantee I will not be back here in 15 years to ask for $2 million and then. Anyway, if you got any questions, I'm sure to try to answer
Russ,
them.
what's the trade-in on the one we have now? What's the value of it?
Basically, they don't take trade-in. What they do is they will price the truck through a scalper like we bought it through, and then that's what the company. So let's say they say, okay, it's $100,000. That's your trade-in. but they don't even handle the truck, it goes straight to. We replaced our rural pumper, and, Jerry, what did we get for that, do you remember?
I don't, cars, I
I
don't.
think 100, and anyway, we moved it up 3 years because somebody wrecked one and the insurance company was looking for one and we had one. And if we would have kept it 3 more years, we would have asked 75,000 for it and we got right at 200,000. So we went ahead and we borrowed the money to upgrade the truck 3 years ahead of time. But in that case, the truck had, great value. Where if we would have waited, it was cheaper to pay the interest by far than doing that there. I'm gonna, with the 88, 20,000, the 102, I'd like to think you could get 100,000, maybe 90. That truck, there are some departments not too far from us that don't have aerial equipment and they need it. But there again, the cities just can't afford it at this point. And that could be a good starter truck for them. And, for a few years, actually, so they're used to using it. I mean, that's one thing. You can't just take one of those trucks and go out there and put it up and without killing somebody, putting in the power lines and stuff like that there. So that kind of possibility, I'd say what you could get for that truck would be used towards a down payment. If you could get 90, 100,000 for it. The older truck we put back into service as a reserve pumper. For our ISO rating, we have to have a reserve truck. So that's why we got that one there. Doesn't really make much sense for us to keep the 102 foot as a reserve because that's the high maintenance truck. We're better off to keep the older one and for the reserve. Is that a good enough guess? That's basically it's a good truck. I mean, body wise and stuff like that. It's just that to get parts anymore, it's going to be spent.
How much does the fire department have to put down payment on a truck?
How much do we have if we were replacing one? We used to, not too many years ago, pay for it in cash because we could set a reserve up. We have our trucks scheduled when they're due for replacement. We used to be on a 10-year replacement program, and we stretched that out about 10 years ago to 15 years. But we were able to, the tankers run about 180,000. The last pumper, I believe, was 320 in there. We weren't able to have, even though we moved it up and got a hell of a price for the old one, we borrowed 75,000, I think, to close that third deal. And so any truck we replace in the future, we're going to borrow money. We can't have a reserve anymore because our money, we get the same amount of money today as we did 20 years ago because of our tax base. And a lot of our farm places are gone, so that taxation went from buildings and structures to ag land and so forth. So our next step probably, if a tax can't support us, would be go to a fire district, and then whatever our budget is what the taxes will be for fire protection on next year. Probably maybe 10-15% of departments are that way in the state right now, and everybody is looking at it. That's the rest of the department.
So the short answer is we have no money to put down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, I mean, this truck has always been the city truck, and the city always took care of replacing it, you know, and stuff like that there. So it's never been in our budget, except for the rotation of replacement. And the way we had that set up at the time when I came aboard was that the rural pumper and the city pumper were damn near identical trucks. But one was replaced 5 years after the other one. So there was always a big pumper that was only 5 to 10 years old. And then we were changing them every 10 years. We sold trucks for more money than what we paid for at 10 years old. That's when our prices, you know, started going up and so forth. So, the rest of the equipment, you know, you guys have helped us out greatly on our bunker gear and stuff, getting that replaced back up to code. I mean, we're out here operating with excellent extrication stuff and this and that. Luckily, you know, through fire protection or prevention and stuff, we don't have the large lost fires we used to have and so forth. And we actually got 2 vehicles for sale. If you got them bid, you still got a couple offers. But we're gonna get rid of 2 vehicles and replace them with 1. And that's those are all used trucks and so forth. But I mean, that's we're sitting okay. It's just that, you know, we missed the boat on replacing that truck 15 years ago. That's the whole. They were reasonably priced. Not that money would have came any easier, because, you know, I'm not telling you guys anything new. There's always, you know, expenses there. And now, you know, if you started putting money aside right now, I think in 10 years, you still wouldn't be able to have enough money because the costs are going to go up. And maybe, you know, we can, maybe there'll be some program come out, like the FEMA deal, that maybe be on state level or something like that for the next 5 years or 10. Some of these other states, the state themselves do the financing for the fire departments and different stuff. And they just simply, here again, you have a 5-year, a 3-year, and a 1-year budget. And if year 5 you need a pumper truck, you get it. The state bids them, and that there, and you had to give them the date. They'll pick up the old one, back in the new one. And like a lot of the fire magazines and that there, especially for volunteers, you know, I volunteered to put out fires and save lives. I didn't volunteer to flip pancakes and go to the banker and beg for money and so forth. But I mean, that'd be easy even for the city of Beresford if the state had a emergency office that handled financing of emergency equipment. Because then this amount would strictly come out of taxes and so forth. You wouldn't have any cash to, you know, take out of your coffee or whatever. But it works in Illinois and Minnesota and Iowa, but that's South Dakota. Not yet, yeah. Any other questions? I don't want to take up any more time. But, you know, I'll keep looking out there and, you know, for used stuff, that if there's something that is a little better deal or whatever, I guess you know, I just appreciate, you know, you guys working with us and this and that there. And if you can figure out some type of financing, you know, I'll help you in whatever I can, and you know, seeing how it works for other companies or distributors. I think I will probably put in for a FEMA grant, but it's going to be for nozzles and hoses and air tanks, and you know, it'll be a $20,000 deal or whatever. But
Mr. Mayor, considering the situation we're in, I'm sure we don't want to take any action tonight, but not wanting another meeting, but I think maybe if the Public Safety Committee got together with Tars and Jerry, started working on some kind of a chronology and financing or whatever it might be, and then come back.
Sure.
I mean, otherwise we're gonna sit here spinning our wheels wishing we had the money to do it. So we gotta start somewhere, and
It's an uphill battle for now. I mean, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And the prices aren't gonna come down, and you guys aren't gonna be getting more money than what, you need to operate the city, so.
I think it's good to put some numbers on paper and figure out what we can and can't afford.
I think it's
Sound fair?
You bet.
Gerald, myself, Teresa,
Right,
and then involve Jerry and yourself.
sure.
We'll get something set up and at least begin the process.
Yeah,
Figure out where to go.
yeah.
I mean, we can talk about it
Well, we haven't.
again in
done-
2 months, we'll talk about the same
And
thing.
we've been successful at trying things, in this and that. But I think, we need the mindset of, okay, by this date, let's fix the problem. And then go on from there, because it doesn't, if we can find something and this here issue won't come up again for 10 or 15 years, that's great.
There's another question. Do you have a process to market the 102 footer? The one that you want to trade in or replace? Do you have a way to market it? I mean, so we could find
Yeah.
out if somebody wanted it?
Usually what we do is go through when we sold other trucks and, go through the fire marshal's office, contact every department in the state, some in Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, that it's available and, don't really hang a price on it at that point. And, usually you'll get some replies and this Purple Wave, I wonder if they sell fire trucks, do you know, Gary?
Fire trucks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But anyway, and then I call them scalpers, and they'll probably beat me up someday. But, there are people out there nationwide that buy and sell fire trucks. A lot of those end up going overseas and so forth. Now, that's how I find these street trucks that you're looking at, is the guy that we sold, that did the deal for the bumper we sold, that went down to Kansas, Missouri, yeah. He came up here and looked at that truck, he got, put an evaluation on it, and he looked at the 102, and so forth. So, I mean, that's probably, we can have one of those guys come up and say, okay, what's it worth today? And that there's, the big companies, they don't take trade-ins. What they'll do is call the same guy we would call, and he'd come up and tell them what he could sell it for, and that's what they would give the people, credit in that.
Well, if that's part of the process, that's what we need to get rolling, if that's your wishes. We'll get in touch and try to be in touch within a week and sit down.
Sure.
We've got to start somewhere.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all you can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter. Carter.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, Golf Course Event Center Committee Report.
310, 2129.
Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, 911 work?
That'll work. We worked out at Quality Park about an hour.
Oh, I was looking for smoke.
Yeah.
I guess multiple council members received a letter, including the mayor and Jerry, and just wanted to give everyone an update that we have met with Ben regarding the items in the letter. And as a result, we determined we're going to set up a golf course advisory council that will involve at least one person from council. I believe the mayor, you're also going to be on there. Some people from the different, like men's golf club league, women's league, and then also some non-golfers from the community as well. So we can have some continued communication between what's going on at the golf course.
I'd love to set up, find some scheduling time I have two people non-associated with the city who have volunteered to be on that group. So I'm gonna find out when they have availability to meet within the next week. All right? Thank you. Department head report, Todd Anson, DMTC.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, go through the update where we're at with fiber to the project. Steve?
Say no fly.
I'll make it short. Update on the cable, on the fiber to the home project, meeting with our engineers. We're done with the A route, C route, D route. On the A route, we got about 340 premises passed. In other words, that will be bearing to with their approval. 340, C route 350, D route 380, and I think we're planning on about 1,070 premises that we will hopefully bury to. The original high level estimate information, mainline duct, so the duct that the distribution lines will be in, we projected about 22.5 miles of it, came in at 16.2, came in less on the main line. Drop duct, at the high level, we anticipated about 23.86. That actually went up to 29.3. According to the engineers, that was a bonus for us. The expense of the mainline duct was much more expensive than the drop duct, so we're glad to see the numbers go that way. Mainline fiber on a high level estimate originally was about 30.29 miles, and as staked, 29.06, so a little bit less on the staked side. Drop fiber on the high level about 37.8, and on the as staked about 40.98. So overall, the footages were real close to what they estimated. They estimated about 114.6 miles, and it came in at 115.26 miles. So happy to see that. Estimated subscribers in the beginning was about 1,055, and I think we're anticipating about 1,070. So no surprises on the as staked versus the original high level estimates. A couple of things that held us back, we were anticipating to possibly put the plow on the ground in November, have the bids already left, so forth back in September, and a couple of things that held us up was the evaluation of existing vacant duct and drop duct with cable during the routing of phase A. That we kind of pulled back and we analyzed that, and with all the engineering costs and everything that was going in to figure out if it's worth utilizing our existing ducts versus existing ducts with cables in them already. And if we use the ducts with cable in them already, it was going to take some manpower to pull out the existing services and then pull back through the fiber and also pull back cable TV along with it. And we kind of phased that part out and decided to bury new to those locations. It was more efficient to do that. So we pulled back and analyzed that. That added approximately 5 weeks more to the schedule. The special building entrances, those were the buildings that did not have any demarcations on the outside of the building. In other words, where your underground came up. So we had to make arrangements, and the crew helped out here and did most of it with making arrangements to get into these locations, mainly businesses and multi-dwelling units, to get inside of them and find out where we needed to hit, and then lay it all out, and then pass that information on to the engineers so they could update their staking sheets to pass on to the bidders. Doing that, they originally figured about 25 to 30 locations, and we ended up with about 70 locations. And so, again, we went out on the first one, and we decided that this is something we could handle in-house and be more efficient. And so that's what we did, and trying to fit it in between the other daily activities, extended it out about 3 weeks, 3 to 4. Finally, there was time to allow, and as far engineering and our staff, we met frequently to discuss and evaluate the material and the design. Number one was the longevity of the product, go with a good, solid product, and number two, the most affordable product. So kind of a balancing act there. And with that said, it's about 2 to 3 weeks over on that. So we were looking at a couple months being extended out, which we didn't anticipate turning any people up in 2019 anyhow. So it was mainly getting the crews to town and maybe starting to do a little construction. And even with that said, it was a little iffy with the elements, the weather conditions and so forth. Don't know if we would have got it done anyway. One thing with the delays, did not create a budget overage. Actually, we feel it actually helped on the budget. Or had budgeted for these phases. I just got done talking about with all the staking, A, C, and D, and so forth, that we looked at a budget of about $195,000 in engineering, and they felt that we had about $42,000 remaining on this budget, which should be more than adequate for the remaining work to get to the next phase. Easements, we have about 80 easements. Tom Fribert did a great job of looking at current easements that were in place from existing burial, and we came up with about 80 easements that we couldn't find records for. So we got Austin to get his notary. So we've been going door to door and getting these easements, and I'd say we're about 50% completed with those easements. And I think for the most part, it's been positive. I don't believe we've had any negative feedback on this project. So, site surveys. I know the guys went out the other day and got a little taste of the site survey, and that'll be either us or the engineer, or possibly a third party going out and doing these site surveys, and that's going out to the location, looking at the house and getting all the details about it. Whether there's sprinkler systems, dog fences buried underground, all that information, and then also on the inside on where we're going to hit with the ONT, which is optical network terminal. So you're going to hear ONT quite often, and that'll be the main function where the fiber optic will actually hook up to. That'll also be the interface point for your telephone service and your high-speed internet. So that'll be something that we'll be looking at down the road. We've got some estimated cost. I know the guys have been working on that a little bit on the estimated cost, whether it is to have a third party do it, whether to have FAR do it, or whether we try to handle as much as we can. So we'll have to take a look at that workload and see where it goes. You saw in the board packet today, got a chance to review the bid. Just a couple of high-level things was, actually I already went through the 15 miles of new main line interduct, 3 miles existing, 29 main. So we kind of basically covered all of that already. Once we get to the approval of the bid, the next stage will be approximately January 6th. We'll be coming back to the council, and we'll be looking for approval to advertise for bid for the inside plant. That'll be inside the central office. That'll be all electronics and so forth, the fiber frames and everything inside. First, looking for the first advertisement approximately January 16th, and release specifications a week of January 20th. The only other thing I want to add for the outside plant is the outside plant specifications and contract. We'll have to get it to legal for review. Hope to do that on 12th of November here, and any updates, modifications, update that and get it back by November 18th. So, any questions on the update? Yes.
I just got one question. Did you give a roundabout figure on what the package deals are going to be whenever the fiber is put in? Because a lot of people have been asking me. I said, I don't know.
We put some ballpark figures together, Beth, and I think Rob might have helped out on that. I haven't reviewed them very closely at this time, Art, so I don't really want to go
Okay.
on
No, that's all right.
put anything out there. So.
Thank you.
Todd, that cable you leave in the ground, are you guys gonna have to pull that eventually, or just leave it there?
pull it out of the ground.
Well, you said you considered pulling it and running the new stuff through it,
Right.
but you're gonna leave it there? Is that,
I'd assume we're probably gonna pull it out.
That pipe will be, it already has cable TV and phone in it, so the cable TV has to stay in that pipe.
oh, so it's
Yeah, it'll
not,
still be utilized.
not a non-functioning pipe?
Right, correct, yep, it'll still be
Okay,
utilized
that's
for cable TV.
Thanks.
Good question. Any other questions?
What are you expecting for it to be done when you flip the switch?
Flip the switch, probably first quarter of 2021. We hope to be substantially completed by 10:30 with the outside plant, the construction and everything. And depending on how well the site surveys go, if we hire a third party that brings in a couple crews, it could move the project along much quicker than if we were to try to handle some of it ourselves. With that said, with the outside plant, I don't want to make any promises that it'll be done by year end next year, but right now we're anticipating probably first quarter of 2021. And it all depends on too. We're looking at getting the construction start end of April. Have a good spring. Maybe we get going early. Everything gets pushed along. So. Any other questions? If not, we'd like to look for the council to approve to let this bid out the outside plant.
I'm gonna make a motion to authorize advertising for bids for fiber to home project.
King second.
Motion by Swagen and seconded to authorize fiber to the home project advertising for bids. Any further discussion?
I'd like to look at my two technicians that are here. Do you guys have anything you'd like to add?
I guess maybe to touch on Troy's, some of the, just when you're gonna flip the switch, it'll be in stages. So, there will be some that'll get turned up sooner than that first quarter of 2021. As they complete the route, the A route, C route, D route, wherever they start, they get that all finalized and tested. We'll start working on that part of the town, turning them up. So completion date to get everybody turned up would be that first quarter of 2021.
Well, that would be the completion date.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep, that is nice.
Wayne Johnson, Finance Office report.
I spoke with Lisa Pack this afternoon in regards to setting up a payment plan, and I emailed it to her and she was going to review it, but she didn't see any sort of problem with it at all. And so with their monthly utility bill, we're just going to stick an invoice in their utility bill as a reminder, and then I am giving her until the 20th of the month to get that payment, since the 15th is utility bills, and then the 20th would be to get the underground electric service. And we are stretching that out 12 months.
I got one question. You're talking about the gold account. Is there any, can I make a motion or can I inquire about, do they want to hook up for water for the last 2 years or something? Is there another bill that they owe for something?
They had some other things that I brought to her attention, and so we did include that.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
And then also, I gave everyone a copy of the September financial report. The electric, water, and sewer is based upon July's consumption, which is good. And I'm anticipating August will stay consistent with some really good numbers. The liquor store is doing great. The golf course is doing great, better. If there's any questions, otherwise you do have, I think everyone has a copy. I am going to work with Teresa on a few things here in the next couple weeks, I hope.
I have one question on the cash report, under the bank CD. There's a deposit and a withdrawal. Did that
CD renew. So that is the
Telephone line.
telephone CD that's at First Savings Bank. And it is due to renew in April of 2021.
I believe it ended up being 4 years, so.
But I have spoken with First Savings Bank, and since we're looking to do this fiber to the home, they are willing to forego any sort of penalties if we withdraw it early.
I was just confused on why it said a deposit and a withdrawal on the report.
We moved it from one bank to another.
Oh, was that included in the outstanding transaction?
Because it matured at one bank and we renewed it at another.
Any questions? Motion to accept the September financials.
Boom, makes a motion to accept the financials.
Doing a second.
Motion by Boone and seconded to accept the September 2019 financials. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Elaine. Old business open Ward 3 City Council position. We canvassed the community at least once, more than once. And I'd like to put forward the esteemed Mr. Troy Doden to serve as Ward 3 councilman.
Need a motion to approve the account. Doing moves to approve the appointment of Detroit Doden to the Ward 3 City Council position.
Motion by Delene, received a second and a second and a half. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
He'll be sworn in before we start the next meeting.
Thank you, Troy. New business 2020 liquor licenses.
In the council packet, there is a list of all of the 2020 liquor license renewals. And I have received everybody's application and their operating agreement and the fee that goes along with it. And so I just need a motion to approve. It would be Burt Sports Bar and Grill, Classics, Chuck's Foodland doing business as Fiesta Foods, Dollar General, the Municipal Liquor Store, and Bridges at Beresford.
Should I make a motion to approve 2020 liquor license renewals as Elaine stated?
Doing a second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to approve the 2020 liquor license renewals. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Housing Development Infrastructure Grant discussion. We've had a number of folks come to the council and express interest and potential limitations to developing housing specifically, and oftentimes the barrier is some of the infrastructure costs. So what I would like to propose or discuss would be, not for this year, but for 2020, the council identifying a set amount of money from our reserves, which we could draw up rules to offer a grant mechanism that would be operated by BEDCO to accept proposals from interested developers who want to develop a piece of land within the city of Beresford and request money from the grant to help offset the infrastructure costs. What I envision is that BEDCO could receive those proposals and review them in accordance with the guidelines set up by the council and make an award either to an individual or potentially to multiple individuals, depending upon the council's wishes, which would then be payable to that entity or entities upon completion of the infrastructure. So, for instance, if somebody submitted a proposal where they were going to develop a parcel of land that had 10 housing units on it, when they completed, if they were awarded the grant, when they completed the infrastructure costs or the infrastructure development of that property, we could then, if they were the ones selected, they could receive the amount that they were awarded in a grant. The infrastructure would be turned over, it would be the property of the city, it wouldn't be something that the developer owns. They'd have to build it within accordance to all of our rules and ordinances. But basically set up something to help spur some development of housing.
Then you pick the committee, I'll be on that committee.
Questions? Sure.
We need a motion for
Thank
that.
you.
Well, I like the idea that Petco, being and maybe the housing group could be a part of it, but that, they could have some input on it as well.
I talked to Phil Peterson, and he thought that Betco would be interested, and the one concern I have with HRC is they would potentially be somebody
Looking for
applying for it.
That's true.
So they're actively seeking opportunities for housing. It would kind of be a conflict of interest, I think, if
That's
they
true.
were also making the award.
Yeah, that's probably true. Because it might not even fall into complete housing, it could be something else as far as infrastructure is concerned, that they might apply. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think there has to be a dividing line too. If we have another K&M come in, there's no way we could have any kind of a reserve for that.
No.
But like the street we're talking about up here and so forth. And I know what I was gonna say. It's based on completion of the work.
Yes.
In other words, they float the dollar ahead,
Yes.
and then we decide,
I think
okay, we're
that's
gonna award you 25,000.
I think that's the important part of it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if the council was interested and we had, let's say, Tom draw up some outline of how we would accept a proposal, as Steve said, it would have to be payable upon completion so that it avoids any sort of speculative grant where somebody takes the money, uses it to purchase the land or something like that. It would only be for a set number of items that would essentially be under the ground utilities, water, sewer. Because again, that just seems like it's a recurring barrier for developers who have an interest in developing property for specifically residential, not business, not commercial. It would just be residential type. It could be single family, multifamily. So if there's interest in that, I'd like to talk with the city attorney and see if we could draw up a draft proposal. And again, it wouldn't be funded, because the question came up, would it be funded by water and sewer revenue? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. It would be, we have reserves within the city. It would be a year-to-year grant. And if in a certain year we could afford or designate $50,000, the next year it could be a different amount or it could be nothing. And it would be a year-to-year grant. There's no multi-year guarantee.
Question, Jerry and Nathan, if it was set up such, would we be able to apply for state money?
Housing probably.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot out there.
No, I know it, but if there happened to be something come along, we would have to be structured such that we would be eligible to apply for something like that.
So,
To supplement.
Yeah.
Or funding.
If we've got 25,000 in it and all of a sudden there's a grant program from the state and we could get
Matching or even.
something like that.
be nice.
And you would shoot for budget year 2021, right?
I would shoot for budget year 2020 if possible. And my reason being is I think there's a number of developers who are, some of them have come to the council. I think at least 3 that I know of who are actively looking to work on projects or start projects. If it's something we could do next year with funding that we have, I think that would be better than waiting a whole other year and a half, almost 2 years.
It would be nice to get into 2020 and have at least a test case somewhere along the line.
I mean, in the perfect world, if we could accept applications sometime in January, have a closing period where Vetco, if they were in agreement, reviews the applications 30 or 60 days later, so that somebody who is interested would have some idea that when the frost clears, they've got some money that could help them. No action at this point, but just kind of a straw poll, I guess. If there's interest, then I'll proceed.
I appreciate your time, Mary. I think the city needs something. And I appreciate you adding Medco to it, because I think they've been trying for quite a few years, but I think every little bit of help they can get, they're gonna need, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Next item, city council meeting start time. This is something I brought up this last week as well. Meeting times are set at 7:30, I believe, by ordinance.
They are.
Is there any interest in moving that meeting time up?
I guess the only thing I would say about the discussion of that would be, I don't know that maybe 7 o'clock, maybe 30 minutes. I don't know that we could go an hour, just in case there's people that want to come and be, they're going to have some kind of visitor to be heard or something. I don't know if we could go to 6:30. I mean, I would consider entertaining the idea of 7, starting at 7 instead of 7:30.
7.
We'll do later hours instead.
Earlier the better.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Talk with Tom, we can maybe draft up an ordinance.
We'll have first reading at the next meeting.
Okay. We don't need to vote or anything.
No, we don't.
Troy, is there an issue with 7?
The later the better for me. My schedule can change on the drop of one phone call. I can be headed home and turn around and go back to Brookings for a house fire or something. But in a case like that, I wouldn't make it here anyway. So, but
No major heartburn?
no.
Thank you. Plat of lots 13, 21, 22, block 2, Bridges 2.
AMS, doing their development on Van Street Drive down there. They've got 2 houses up. They'd like to plat 3 more lots and get started on 1 more housing unit yet this year. So the plat was, you should have been in your packet there. You can kind of take a look at it. But there's 3. There's going to be 1 down on the west end adjacent to the 2 existing, and they're going to plan on starting on the very far east side, be kind of across from Bob Freeberg's house in that area. That's what their intent is. I think they've got some stakes out there already, so they'll pick this up tomorrow. If you guys if someone would make a motion to adopt, to approve the plat, we can go ahead and sign it and then get it ready for them to pick up tomorrow morning.
Shall I make a motion for lots 13, 21, and 22 of block 2, Bridges 2 addition as Jerry Simonson made for the state?
Wait a second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to approve plats of lot 13, 21, 22, block 2, Bridges 2nd edition, track 4 for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Review of chief of police and police officer job descriptions.
This kind of came up a little bit while we were getting our advertising for the chief of police out, and we looked at the job description. I didn't even want to put this on our website because it was pretty dated, as they were still overseeing the dispatch and water treatment department, which we haven't had for 5 or 6 years. So what checked with a couple other communities who've recently updated theirs, and we took some of their stuff out of there, make sure we have what we needed out of ours. Kind of wrap it all up in a little bit, I think, a little bit better position description than what we've had in the past, covering a lot of different things. I did review it with the committee a little bit and got some good feedback from those people also. So I'm not going to read through it. Hopefully you got a chance to read through it, but I would like to have something that we can go forward with on the chief of police right now. I'm not so concerned about the police officer because I think I'd like our new chief of police to review that a little closer. But I think we're kind of pretty much set in setting that chief of police as, and I think this kind of mixes everything that we've talked about and done over the past few years. It brings it up to a current level that we would adopt. I have talked to Tom Fraber a little bit too, just to make sure we're okay to adopt this, not running by the union as chief of police. So we're okay to adopt whatever we feel is correct. If there's any changes we want to make, we can do that on our own also. But this is a pretty good one.
We need a motion.
I think we would like to, yeah, we'd adopt.
Should I make a motion to review the chief of police update for the job description as Jerry Simon stated for the police chief?
Kane second.
Motion by Shelton, seconded to approve the chief of police job description. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we will wait on the police officer until we have a new chief in place. And we have had some real strong applicants, just letting you guys know we have had 5 or 6 applicants, some very strong ones so far, so things are looking very good.
When's it close? Or is it?
We don't have a closing date. We're advertising locally again next week, or this week I think, so probably next week we'll probably take a look at some of those. I'll get the committee together, we'll see if we can take a look and try to come up with at least 3 or 4 good ones to interview there. And I think right now there's at least 4 that we've interviewed for sure.
Nice.
Roadside winter hours.
They just go to Saturdays only from 9 to noon. Eileen, am I right there?
Yes.
9 to noon on Saturdays, starting December 1st. We've done that, it seems like that works pretty good. Weather just is changing rather quickly, so that'll be the first Saturday in December is when we'll be changing our hours. So. All right, exactly. We're changing in December 1st, so that will leading up to Saturday, we will not be open.
Christmas party. What do you got there, Elaine?
I spoke with Ben to see what dates were available because we always try to celebrate the first weekend in January with the city Christmas party, and he said that Friday and Saturday is both available. I think it's the 4th and the 5th. We've kind of stayed with more of the Friday in case there's other events going. I guess it's up to you guys what you feel, if you want to have Ben cater it again or if you want to change it up.
He catered it last year, didn't
B&T's barbecue.
he? Yeah, he catered it last year, right? Yeah, seemed like he last year.
Nothing against Ben, I'm just thinking if we do ask some other local businesses that might be interested, just because we are giving Ben every Thursday night that he wants. Check it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Sound fair?
Is that gonna be on a Friday or Saturday or either
I think we're
one?
gonna aim for Friday.
What day?
The 3rd?
Third,
Third.
yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. No discussion on that. Thanks, Elaine. Travel requests, Mike Atkinson to appear November 5th, 6th, Service Territory meeting. Need a motion to approve.
Dwayne moves to approve the travel request.
Second.
Motion by Dwayne and second to approve the Service Territory meeting for Mike Atkinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Travel approved. Motion for payment of bills.
Dwayne so moves.
Move second.
Motion by Dwayne and second to authorize payment of bills. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to enter into executive session for personnel.
Dwayne so moves.
Second.
Motion by Delene and seconded to enter into executive session for personnel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Elaine,
Into session.
is this where Allison gives her biographical speech?
No, I didn't prepare anything.